have members of your cabinet that are being booed out of restaurants, who have protesters taking up at their house, who's saying no peace, no sleep. No peace, no sleep. And guess what? We're going to win this battle, because while you try and quote the Bible, Jeff Sessions and others, you really don't know the Bible. God is on our side. On the side of the children, on the side of what's right, on the side of what's honorable, on the side of understanding that if we can't protect the children, we can't protect anybody. And so let's stay the course. Let's make sure we show up wherever we have to show up. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere. We've got to get the children connected to their parents. The children are suffering. We don't know if the shock that they're going through can ever be overcome. We don't know what damage is being done to these children. All that we know is they're in cages, they're in prisons, they're in jails. I don't care what they call it. That's where they are. And Mr. President, we will see you every day, every hour of the day, everywhere that we are, to let you know you cannot get away with this.
One wonders what to make of remarks that California Congresswoman and progressive hero Maxine Waters recently made about HUD Secretary Ben Carson. During a speech on Saturday in New Orleans, Waters said that when Carson appears before her congressional committee, quote, "I'm going to take his ass apart," excuse me. Quote, "Carson knows nothing about the mission of HUD," Waters continued. "He doesn't care about people in public housing. He believes that if you are poor, it is your fault. And he doesn't know the difference between an immigrant and a slave," whatever that means. Now, we've mocked Maxine Waters before in this show, but we should take her seriously on this subject. Congresswoman Waters is a confirmed expert on the question of housing, especially her own housing. Consider where she lives. In a 6,000 square foot, $4.3 million mansion in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Los Angeles. Now, how'd she afford a place like that after having spent the last 40 years working in government? We'd hate to speculate. How does she keep getting reelected despite not living in her own congressional district? No clue there either. The district Waters actually represents in Congress has the second highest percentage of African-American residents in the state of California. Now, the neighborhood where Waters actually lives is just 6% black, or as she might put it herself if she didn't live there, it's segregated, like 1950s level segregated. And as we mentioned, it's really, really rich. So how did Maxine Waters pull off a housing coup like that? Who knows, but it almost qualifies her to be HUD Secretary herself.
Wow, what a moving evening this is. I am sitting here listening, watching, absorbing, thinking about Ali, even though I never met him. And with this kind of inspiration, I will go and take Trump out tonight.
Those words have been interpreted as an attempt on the president's life.
Oh,
how did you intend them?
That's absolutely ridiculous. Nobody believes that a 79-year-old grandmother who is a congresswoman and who has been in Congress and in politics for all of these years talking about doing any harm. The only harm that I may be doing to the president is I want him impeached. And those people who are so opposed to my leadership on impeachment are organizing the right wing, the white nationalists, the KKK. They've organized an effort to try and, of course, defeat me in my election coming up and to discredit me. Everybody knows that I'm on the front lines, not talking about any physical harm to anybody, but I am talking about impeachment, and I'm not going to.
I want to ask you what your reason is for boycotting the president's address. Why not hear him out?
I will not be attending the President's State of the Union this evening because I know so much about this president. I have watched him very thoroughly as he campaigned. I've spent a year fighting him and his practices. He's been documented to have told 2,001 lies in 1 year's serving in this country. And so I don't trust him. I don't believe anything that he has to say. And there's no reason for me to sit there and pretend.
You say you don't trust him. The White House says the speech is about unity. Is there anything he could say to you to get you back to the table?
It's not anything you could say. Perhaps there's something he could say to this country. He certainly has not been about unity. This is a man who basically sided with the right wing, the white supremacists and others at Charlottesville. This is a man who's been very divisive. One of the first things that he did was to have a travel ban that would exclude Muslims from this country. The other thing, he called Mexicans rapists and all kinds of names, said he was going to build a wall and he was going to make Mexico pay for it. He just disparaged Haiti and Africa and called them S-holes. And so what do you mean when you talk about unity? He cannot make us believe in one speech that he's going to change his character. This man has no good values, and I don't expect that he is going to change, and certainly one speech at the State of the Union is not going to do that.
You know, the president, one sector of the community has been involved in. The president is saying he's touting these record low unemployment rates, particularly among African Americans. It's 6.8% in December. That's historically low. Congresswoman, I remember a point when you were critical of President Obama for not doing enough for black unemployment. What do you make of that number?
Well, let me just say this. First of all, this president takes credit for everything. As a matter of fact, he goes so far as to take credit for getting North Korea and South Korea together when they actually got together around the Olympics. And so, yes, the employment rates have been steadily coming down, but still we are double the white rate.
You're right. It has been coming down steadily since 2010. You were, as I mentioned, critical of President Obama for not doing enough. What more would you like to see this president do in reaching out to communities, as you outlined earlier?
Well, first of all, he's done nothing. This president should be about all of the people. This president should be about understanding how to create opportunities for the least of these. This president should understand how important comprehensive health care and Obamacare is to the African American community. He should be investing more in education and housing. He has not talked about any of this, so there's a lot that he could do. I don't expect that he's going to do very much. This president has attacked more women, more individuals, name calling. I mean, look at this. Not only has he talked about Senator Warren, called her Pocahontas, he called Hillary crooked, he's calling me low IQ, he called Rubio little. I mean, this is what we expect of him. I just wonder what took him so long. And so, since we know who he is, and the fact that he is, you know, calling people names constantly and talking about the media in the way that he does, and calling people SOBs, et cetera, I'm not surprised at all. All I know is this: if he thinks he can stop me from talking about impeach 45, he's got another thought coming. I am not intimidated by him. I'm going to keep saying that we need to impeach him, and I am so depending on our special counsel, Robert Mueller, to connect the dots so that he can prove the collusion. And of course, we've seen obstruction of justice just playing out before our very eyes. So this is a dishonorable human being. He is a con man. He came to this job as a con man. I really call him, you know, Don the con man. And so that's who he is. That's what we expect. And I'm not surprised at all. He has not provided legitimate leadership. And this last action that he was involved with, Nunes, and I mean, I do believe that he was involved, they concocted a scheme by which it would appear that somehow his accusation about being wiretapped was real, and he tried to convert that into talk about possible surveillance where his people were picked up, you know, doing surveillance. And so he has done so many things to show that he doesn't understand government. He's not willing to learn. He doesn't learn from his mistakes. Instead of learning, he gets up the next morning and tweets something else all over again. Most people believe that he's about diversion. that he's about keeping people from really dealing with the issue. We want to know whether or not there was collusion. We want to know about the hacking into the DNC and the interference with our elections. And I really want to know, because I know if we can prove collusion, that he is impeachable. A lot of people don't want to talk about that, but I do. I want to talk about him. I want to talk about this Kremlin clan that's around him. And I think that those people, Republicans, people in some of the small towns and rural communities that are standing with him now, they're not going to be able to stand with him when they understand the danger he is to our country.
No apologies for her calls to confront Team Trump, and instead is pinning the blame entirely on him. Even Democrats are denouncing her rhetoric, as they should. Listen to what Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is saying.
If you disagree with someone or something, stand up, make your voice heard. Explain why you think they're wrong and why you're right. Make the argument. Protest peacefully. If you disagree with a politician, organize your fellow citizens to action and vote them out of office. But no one should call for the harassment of political opponents. That's not right. That's not American.
And yet that is exactly what they're doing. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, meanwhile, tweeting, quote, "In the crucial months ahead, we must strive to make America beautiful again. Trump's daily lack of civility has provoked responses that are predictable but unacceptable. As we go forward, we must conduct elections in a way that achieves unity from sea to shining sea." Yeah, you think? And yet we just heard a whole bunch of sound from Maxine Waters, from Cory Booker, from pundits on television saying that somehow it should be expected that if you work for Donald Trump, you will be harassed, you will be attacked, you will be ashamed or shamed by these other people.